Okay, students, the purpose of this video is to show you how to model in 3D. And the one that I'm going to use for a demonstration today is the bed plate. Okay, so whenever you model in 3D, you need to look at the three views that we've been learning about, the top view, the front view, and the right side view. And what's going to happen is you're going to draw that shape, you see, because what happens with 3D is you have to start 2D, which is why we spent so much time modeling in drawing in 2D, because it's very essential, because you have to start with 2D to eventually go into 3D. So then what we have to do in looking at the part that we're going to model is we have to look at one of the views and see which is the one that I can build that I will then extrude. And what I mean by extrude, and we'll see that in a little bit, is I'm going to pull that shape and give it depth. Okay, give it the depth. So then which shape from here would I pick? Would I be the top view, the front view, or the right side view? Okay. So in this case, because the top view would be basically this. And if I were to pull this whole shape down, then I would have a big rectangle like this, a big shape like this, which it's okay. And I can still work with that. But I'll have to do more work than what I really need to get the shape that I want eventually. Okay. So, that might not be a good one. The front view, if I look at it, I would have to, and again, you got to think about it flat. I would draw this shape here. Okay. And I could then extrude it and give it depth. But once again, you can kind of see that I'm missing a lot of stuff still. I would have to somehow cut this part out here, and this part out here. So it's just too much. It's too much. It can be done, but it's just, again, what's the easier thing to do? And if I look at the right side view, what am I going to draw on the right side view? On the right side view, I would actually draw this shape here. A lot better than what I'm tracing. Okay. And then this shape for this piece back here. Okay. So would this be the better shape to draw for this one model? Yes, this would be the better one, because once I extrude this one, I'll get this definition, this one extruded, and this one, and this one. And you can kind of see I'll get most of it. The only part that I'll have to come back and do separately, okay, the only part that I'll have to come back and do separately would be this piece here. And that's going to happen a lot. In 3D, you're going to do most of it, and then you have to come back and do some other little things to add to the model. And then we'll have to do what's called a subtraction to make those drill holes, okay? So let's start with this one. All right. So in AutoCAD, the first thing we need to do is we need to change our workspace. Down in here at the bottom, workspace switching. So the workspace that we've been working with up to now is called drafting and annotation. So the one I wanted to change over to is this one that says 3D modeling. So I'm going to click over to 3D modeling, and it's going to change the ribbon to get my AutoCAD kind of in a better, with all the commands, or the more of the commands for 3D modeling specifically, okay? And like I mentioned, the extrude command is this one that I'm going to use to give it the depth. There are some other 3D modeling methods that I'll explain in another video another day. And then there's some predefined shapes that you can work with, okay? Boxes and cones and stuff, all in 3D. And then some of the solid editing commands that we're going to be using, okay? Where is the line command? That's still here. It's actually now in this small little panel here, okay? And of course, everything still stays the same without being able to type, all right? So, as always, good habit to change over to your units to fractional. And I'm going to start drawing this right side view. So I'm going to draw myself a line, F8, 3 3/4. And come up this way, 1. This one is 1 1/8. I don't know the height of this one yet, so I'm going to leave this one out. And this isn't anything new. I think you should be pretty familiar with this already. But it's just drawing the geometry that I need. It's just really drawing the geometry that I need. So I think I'm going to go from here, 6 1/8, the top and across. And then this one comes up this way. And then this one comes down 1 inch. Over here, this, and this one up here, and trim. So that's really the only shaping I need. That's really the only shaping I need. I will need this other little piece here. I will need that other little piece. So I can draw it now and use it. But the thing is that the first thing in 3D is I want to have one closed continuous shape. one closed continuous shape. I realize that I have another little box over here. Okay, I realize that I have another little box, which is this one, but I'll do it later because I'll show you how to model it in a little later. So I need to start with this shape first. Okay. Now, before anything, I want to change over to and start using the view cube. On the view cube is where I'm going to flip it around, and I think you guys have kind of messed with it just a couple of times. And I'm going to start looking at it from the side. Okay. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to change over what's called my visual style. Right now it's on the 2D wireframe. I'm going to click on that one, and you have several of them, and you can switch back and forth, and I'll show you how and why you would do that. But I'm going to go over to shaded, and then before I do what's called my extrusion, I'm going to do another step that's called region, REG. I need to create a region of this closed continuous shape first. This is a very, very important step. If you don't do this, the whole model is going to be wrong. It's going to be hollow. It will not be solid. And you can't go back and make it into a solid. If you make a hollow model, it stays hollow and it's going to be wrong. Okay. So we have to region it first. I can't tell you how important that is. Region. What am I going to region? I'm going to region this shape. So I'm going to pick a big window around this whole thing and hit enter. And you should get this effect. Okay. Now, this is where sometimes a lot of you guys that have a bad habit, and I really haven't covered it too much, when you have little lines on top of lines, okay, that's not a good thing. That's actually a bad habit, and you guys do that because of whatever reason. But this is a good instance of where you do not want to do that. It can give you problems. It can give you problems. Okay, so if you have lines on top of lines, get rid of them. Just make sure you have one continuous line segment all the way around, or arcs if it's something round. So that's a good first thing to do, is that you have to make sure that it's a nice clean loop. Okay. The other thing too is because at that point, then I can region it and we'll get this effect. Okay. Now, some other things that would happen, and this will happen, if there's, and I call it a little leak. If there's a small little gap somewhere, okay, sometimes it's so small you can't even see it. But because of that, it will not region. Okay. How do I know it didn't region? Well, it tells me down here. It says 0 loops extracted, 0 regions created. So that's the first thing. The other thing too is it just didn't turn like the gray. And that's just because of the fact that I'm in shaded. That's why I like to go to shaded, because I can tell if it's in 3D. So again, once I region and it doesn't, you might have a little line extra somewhere, or you'll have to start looking at each and every one of these intersections to make sure everything's joined, because more than likely you might find something like this. If this happens, your 3D is not going to work for you. Okay, so just be careful. Be careful. Okay, and sometimes it's really hard. So some techniques to find those, what I call a leak, is you might have to grip the two lines, and if they both move, then that's okay. That one's joined. If they move, this one's joined too. Okay, so you notice they're all moving except the one that I know is wrong. And if I do that, then only one line moves. Ah, there it is. Then I can go in there and investigate and find out what happened. And I just need to rejoin it. Okay. Once that's joined, then I can region, make sure you do, and get this effect. Okay. Then I can start using my extrude command. So the extrude, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a surface and extrude it to give it the third dimension, which is what's called 3D, which is really the Z dimension. That's why they call it 3D. We've been working on X and Y, which is the 2 dimensions. The third dimension is Z. So I'm going to extrude this. Okay. How much of an extrusion? It looks like it's going to be, in this case, 10 inches. So I'm going to extrude, select this guy, enter, and I'm going to extrude it up 10 inches. How do I revolve the model? To move and navigate the model, I can still zoom in and out. But to revolve and look at it from different directions, I can click the view cube on different sides. Or to do what's called an orbit, I can press and hold the shift key, press and hold the middle wheel on my mouse, and move it around. This is my preference, to be honest with you. This is called an orbit. So at this point, then I'll orbit the part and see what else I'm missing. To orbit, you can also just press and hold the view cube anywhere, And then you can also orbit by pressing and holding the view cube. Okay, whichever one works for you. My preference is to hold the shift key and the middle wheel, which is actually a button on your mouse. Okay. So what am I missing? Let's see. The part that I'm missing is this part right here. That's the part that I'm missing. So let me add that to the model. What dimensions would it be? It's 1 inch this way, and it looks like it's 1 1/8 this way. So it's really a 1 inch, 1 1/8, 1 inch, 1 1/8. Okay. And then I'll be extruding it. Let's see, this is 5. The whole thing is 10, so it's 5. All right, very good. Okay. Some other techniques in working with 3D. I need to draw this little shape. It's almost like if I have to kind of draw it like from this face right in here. Okay. Now, whenever you're drawing in 3D, you always, always, always want to draw. I'm not sure how to word this, but just kind of in a view where you can kind of see the depth. Okay, because this is a trick question of the day. I'm going to go to top. Let's say I go to here, this view, and I draw myself a line from this point. So the trick question of the day is, this is an endpoint. But ladies and gentlemen, how many endpoints do we have at this area? We actually have 2. We have 2 now, okay? Which 2? This one and this one. So if I'm drawing from here, which one am I picking? I don't know. I don't know. So if I draw a line from here, okay? If I draw a line from here, let's see if I can. I'm going to try to do this wrong to show it to you. It's just very hard for me to do something wrong because it's Mr. Torres. And that's the joke of the day. I do this stuff wrong all the time. My wife. If I draw a line from here, did it draw it from the top? Did it draw it from this top over here? It didn't. Okay. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful because you don't know if you're drawing from this line or from this endpoint or this endpoint. So that's one of the things that you do not want to do in 3D. You don't want to draw from these views. You want to draw it from where you can actually see the depth and see where you're actually drawing. So for example, I'm going to try it again. Where am I drawing from? Okay. Did I draw it from the bottom or from the top? Well, see, again, you really couldn't tell. It's just hard to tell. It's hard to tell where you're drawing from. I was trying to draw it from here, actually. I was trying to show you the wrong way of doing it. But again, kind of hard for me to do that because Mr. Torres, and I don't do anything wrong. Yes, that is a joke. Then you might start having stuff like that, okay, where you're looking at it this way, it looks like a nice straight line, but then I drew it from here, but then you kind of flip it on the side, and now all of a sudden I'm going from one surface to another. That's where you have to be very, very careful in 3D. That's where you have to be very, very careful because it will happen to you. It will happen to you. And for it to region, that step that I talked about, it has to be perfectly flat on the geometric plane. If you have this type of geometry, it will not region. Okay? Just a little bit of a warning. All right. So how do I draw this little shape, the 1 1/8 and 1 inch? So I think what I'll do is I'll draw a line from this endpoint here. Once again, notice where I'm drawing it. I can kind of see where I'm at. F8, and I'm going to go this way, 1 1/8. This way, 1. And you know, I have my ortho on. That's why I'm locked on the X and Y axis. Then I'm going to go this way, 1 1/8. And I do need to close the shape to here to make that closed continuous shape. Okay? So once I have this closed continuous shape, I can then region this one and extrude it to 5 inches. That's how you start 3D modeling. Okay. Now let me tell you some of the things that could be wrong. For example, could I extrude without regioning? Yes, I can. But when I do that, you're going to get this effect. And that's where I'm saying that you're going to have problems because it's going to be hollow. It won't be a solid like this one. It'll be hollow. And sometimes you won't even tell that it's hollow until you start working with the solid and try to do some other things and it just won't work. Well, it's because the piece is hollow. You never regioned it. Can I go back and make it into a solid? No, you can't. As far as I've known, that I work with 3D models, I haven't found a way. There might be a way, but I haven't found a way. So the best thing is just to region it first and then extrude 5 inches. Okay. It is 2 separate pieces. So then some of the solid editing tools that I'll start using right now is I'm going to union it because I want to make it one big solid piece. So to make it one piece, I'm going to click on here under union, select the 2 pieces I want to union, enter, and make it into one piece. So now it's all one big piece. Okay. The drill holes. For the drill holes, it's a 1 1/2 inch ream, which is a diameter of 1.5 inches, 2 of them. And what I'll have to do, kind of like how we did isometrics, is I need to work with the center point. I need to work with the center point. I could then draw a circle and extrude it, but I'm going to show you how to use some of these, specifically the cylinder, because that's really what it ends up being. But the first thing I need to do is draw myself a target to get to the center point. So it's 2 1/16. All right. So 2 1/16. Okay. And before I get too far, another thing I like to do is I like to orient my view cubes. In other words, so if I click on it, so it can show me the front view of the object, the top view, and the right side view. So right now, it's not really oriented correctly. It's not really oriented correctly. So I'm going to go and do what's called a 3D rotate. 3D rotate. So I'm going to select 3D rotate, select the object, enter. And then it asks me to pick one of the axes. Which way do I want to rotate it? Do I want to rotate it around the green axis, the red, or the blue? Okay. So when I click 3D rotate, I select the object, hit enter, and then it asks me to pick an axis. And sometimes you just have to kind of guess, and you can try it. And click on that one, and you see it. Okay, well, it's rotating this way. Do I want to do that? I don't know. Or do I want to rotate it this way? Okay. So just rotate it whatever you need so I can orient this as my front. Just a good habit. You don't have to, but it's just a good habit to do that. And I'll show you why also. Another reason why I do that. This way, and then I'm going to rotate it based on this one, this way. Perfect. So that way my front view will be like this, my top view, and my right side view. Okay, very good. See, look at that. It's already oriented the same way as it is on the handout. Okay. All right, so I need to pick a line and draw it from here 2 1/16 up this way. So I'm going to draw myself a line and go from here this way 2 1/16. Okay. Now, every once in a while, kind of hard to see where I drew the line. In this case, it's pretty visible, but sometimes it's not. So sometimes to be able to see line work, like I'm gonna continue with this one coming this way, should be 2.5 inches. So notice I can't really see that line, and I don't know where it's at. But sometimes, look at that. It took off on me. So it happens. I was trying to draw a line this way, and it kind of went another direction. So that happens. Be careful. That's going to happen. So let's see. Use this guy and erase that one. Right again. So sometimes you just have to switch it back to maybe 2D wireframe to be able to see inside the shape. And it's your preference. You model however you want to model. If you want to work in nothing but 2D wireframe, you can. To me, it's confusing because if you flip it around, then you're like, okay, am I looking at the top or the bottom? And you'll understand what I mean when it starts getting a little bit more complicated. Of course, I oriented it so it makes sense here, but sometimes it just kind of plays tricks on your eyes, and you'll know what I mean when you start working with these. Okay. But yeah, you can switch between these if you want to. You can go to X-ray. That kind of makes it look a little bit transparent. Sketchy makes it look like if you drew a sketch. So you can kind of mess with these, and you can actually even make your own. You can go in and make your own visual style, but nonetheless. So let's see. I'm going to go back to solid, shaded. And then I'm going to draw my next line from here this way, 5 inches. Okay. All right. So then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click over here and go to cylinder. I'm going to draw myself a cylinder for this one to be a 1.5 inch diameter cylinder. So this is a new F key that I want to show you. On what surface do I need it? I actually need it on this surface. Now, if I go and start drawing a cylinder randomly, it'll always draw it on the X and Y axis. Okay? It'll always draw it on the X and Y axis. And I can do that, and then I can come back and 3D rotate it if I want to. Okay? I can do that. But again, to make it easier, what I can do is I can create a cylinder, but instead of it being on the X and Y axis, once I click on the cylinder command, notice that it flips around. Keep an eye on the view cube over here. The top and the front and the right will change. Notice that whatever is blue on the surface is where it's oriented as the top. So if I needed to, for example, draw a cylinder here, once it's highlighted, I'll click it here and then make the cylinder through that surface, parallel to this plane. To turn that on, it's usually on by default. That key, it's the, I always forget which one it is. Is it F6? Yeah, dynamic UCS. Make sure you have dynamic UCS on so that it actually finds those surfaces to model on. And then that way you can draw cylinders in whatever shapes based on that surface, okay? If it's off, and sometimes you do have to turn it off, you'll have to hit F6. And then it turns it off, and then no matter where I'm at, it's always going to draw it on the X and Y plane, okay? Another new F key to learn. So I'm going to turn mine on, F6, dynamic UCS on. Cylinder, I'm going to do a cylinder from this surface, a diameter D of 1.5. And since this is going to be a drill hole, I'm just going to push it through the whole thing. I don't need to know the depth. I could, but I don't need to know it. And I'll show you why not. Diameter, 1.5 inches, and I'm going to push it through the whole thing. I always like to make it a habit of erasing all my little extra lines as I go. So there is the holes that I'm going to eventually, cylinders that I'm going to eventually use to make a hole. How do I do that? I'm going to use another command now called subtract. Instead of union and make it one piece, I'm going to subtract. So then the way it works is I'm going to subtract from which object, from this object is where I'm going to subtract from, enter. What am I going to subtract? I'm going to subtract this cylinder and this cylinder, enter. And that is how I make drill holes. Okay. Hope you enjoyed the 3D modeling video.